All right. I think we are live now. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 21st Franklin City Public School Board meeting. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. Do we have a motion to come out of closed session?
This is Vice Chairman Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I move that the school board, having been in closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Jessica Banks, Ward 6.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, moving by ward, signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
And Carrie Johnson at large is not with us tonight. And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is a certification of our closed session. Do we have a certification for our closed session? Do we have Go ahead.
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shelton. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second by Williams, Ward 4.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Vice Chairman Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up are motions from closed session. Do we have any motions to entertain from closed session?
This is Vice Chairman Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I move to approve the personnel agenda.
We have a motion to approve the personnel agenda. Do we have a second?
Rebecca Jester, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. That finally moves us to the Pledge of Allegiance, which Ms. Moore has been so gracious to supply us with a flag tonight. So if you will, everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
allegiance
flag
to
The flag
of the United States of
of America
and to
and
the
and to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which
which
it
it stands,
stands,
one nation
Nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
visible,
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice
and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Thank you very much for being so creative with that flag, Miss Moore. Next up is the approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Rebecca Jester, second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jester. We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor moving by wards signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. Next, that moves us down to roll call. Ms. Moore, if you would lead the roll call, please.
Sure. Rebecca Jester,
Present.
Amy Phillips,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Hall Leonard,
Present.
Marshall Williams,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Shelton,
Present.
Jessica Banks,
Present.
Carrie Johnson.
And Ms. Johnson is absent. All right, that leads us to citizens time. Ms. Moore, did we have anyone sign up or send anything in for citizens time?
No, we did not.
Okay, we did not. Well, we do thank anyone from the public that joins us, and we do want to remind them that just because we're not meeting in council chambers, we are still open and we are still accepting any requests for citizens time. So our next meeting will be in a couple of weeks, and if anyone would like to submit anything or would like to ask for an opportunity to speak to the board, absolutely, we do still entertain citizens time, and we do still look forward to any input from any of the citizens within the community. Next, moving down to section 3, consent agenda. There are several items that were put before us in the consent agenda. We have minutes from 3 separate meetings: March the 5th work session, our March 31st school board meeting, and our April 23rd school board meeting. We also have the Sba policy updates which were submitted to us at our previous meeting. These were some updates to policies and additions to policies that were provided by VSBA. It wasn't quite as extensive as it usually is, but there were quite a few changes. The next item was the COVID-19 assistance pay, which we previously had discussed as a consensus poll. We had the VDOE authorization of signature in absence of the superintendent. This was submitted by Dr. Sterling to extend Mr. Ryder's authority in Dr. Sterling's absence through June 30th of next year. So that would fall in place for the upcoming fiscal year. We had purchase order 20-699 for E+. This is, Dr. Sterling, correct me if I'm wrong, this is some enhancements and upgrades to the internet access at all 3 school buildings.
Yes, it is.
As you may remember, we've had discussions before, especially about the high school and the connectivity issues. So this is directly a response to not just at the high school, but at all 3 schools.
Correct.
Following that is purchase order 20-737 to Stage Right Lighting. We discussed this at our last meeting. This is for the curtains at Franklin High School in the auditorium. They have not been replaced in years, so this is replacing all of the hardware for those curtains as well as the curtains. We had purchase order 20-744 to Dell. That was for replacement of the laptops for the central office staff.
Right.
We have purchase order 20-762, which is to K-Log. That was for some furniture for
SP Morton.
SP Morton. That's what I thought.
Yes.
Had a moment there. Then we have purchase order 20-770 to Windsor Homes, and that is for building a security wall at JPK, Joseph P. King Jr., the middle school. You may remember last year we had that security wall installed at the high school, and this is following suit and sticking with the division's goal of maintaining security at all of our buildings. Next up is purchase order 20-772 to Windsor Homes. And this is to remove all of the carpet and build a build out for the sinks at the high school in the band room. So this is refurbishing and remodeling that band room. And then lastly, we have purchase order 20-777 to Frontline Education. This is our time and attendance monitoring system that we're implementing. You may recall, because we have had some discussions before, a lot of this was an antiquated process. It was all done by hand. So this is going to allow the division to maintain and monitor that in a much more efficient way.
I do have a question, Madam Chair, Mrs. Phillips. This is Hall Leonard, Ward 3.
Absolutely.
On the front
Go
line.
ahead, Dr. Hall Leonard.
Yes, on the monitoring system, were there other products that we looked at? For example, Lobby Guard. Did we look at any others to make comparisons as to the prices or the functionality?
No, at this time, we didn't look at any others. We just added on to the system that we currently have. So there's no training involved because we're already with Frontline with our recruitment. So we're just adding on to the package.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone have any further questions in regards to the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, I do. And this is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I have a question, well, not a question so much as a statement. I want to appreciate Dr. Sterling for providing the memo that is dated May 8th for the COVID assistance pay, as she has detailed the rationale and the recommendation. However, I really do think it would have been helpful had the school board had this information detailed like this prior to members being polled, prior to the polling of the school board. Also, at the bottom of the memo, I'm a little concerned in reference to the phase 1, phase 2. Now, I appreciate the detail, and I believe this is coming from Mr. Ryder's report under the $1,000 COVID assistance pay, which I truly, which I did approve when I was polled. However, then the phase 1 and phase 2, my concern is highlighted in yellow here. It says more spending needed to get to the required deficit, and it's for phase 1 and it's also for phase 2. So my concern as a board member is this the right verbiage? Is this correct? or maybe I need an accommodation or modification that helps me to understand that a deficit would not be overspending our budget. And so that may need to come up under the finance, but this was under the consent agenda. So I wanted to point that out. But when Mr.
Yes.
Ryder comes to us with finance, I need some more clarity there to help me with that.
And absolutely, Dr. Hall Leonard, and I believe that Mr. Ryder will address that phase 1 and phase 2 when he goes over the finance section of the agenda for this evening. I believe that this was included so that it would show, as you can see with that blue arrow, where that
Yes.
COVID assistance pay fell
Yes.
into that spend down. And yes, the spend down, we do have to spend into a deficit, as Mr. Ryder indicated in the last couple of meetings, because we had that carryover for last year. So in order to reflect that we actually have spent that carryover, we have to spend down our budget into a negative, because the budget itself did not include the amount for the carryover. That's above and beyond what our budget was.
And so I guess this is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I guess as a school board member, I'm a little concerned about that, Chairman Phillips. So I'm going to hold my thoughts on that for Mr. Ryder. I'm a little concerned. That's why I said, is this correct? That's highlighted in yellow, that we are required to have a deficit.
Yes, and I'll let Mr. Ryder address that when we get into finance.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions in regard to the consent agenda items? If not, then I will entertain a motion in regards to the consent agenda.
Shelton, Ward 5, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion in regards to the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Williams, Ward 4, second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All right, then moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Vice Chairman Andrea Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up, moving down to item 4, report of the superintendent, which leads us right into finance. Good evening, Dr. Sterling, and if you would like, I will turn the floor over to you so that you can proceed with your report of the superintendent.
Thank you, board members. I'm going to move right into finance, where we'll have Mr. Ryder do the finance report. This finance report usually is at the end of the month, but we decided to do a mid-month report for the board because we want to make certain that our board is kept abreast about local sales tax and what we're receiving in from the state and local level. Also, we'll have a review of transportation, extra duty supplements. Also, I'm going to take that portion to discuss the question that a board member had last week, and that was Ms. Johnson, who is not here, but I still wanted to make certain that I address it. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, and good evening, board members, chair, vice chair, superintendent. It's good to see you all. Yes, this is a kind of a highly unusual step that I asked superintendent to give a mid-month financial picture. So during these very challenging times and very fast changing assumptions, that I thought maybe, even though it's not a lot of conclusions or answers, that I did want to update the board on what has transpired even in the last 2 weeks. So going to the next slide, this is the state calculator that I had showed everyone at the May 7th work session. And I said 2 weeks ago. And so 2 weeks ago, the state funding shortfall for this year this was what it looked like. Down there in the yellow, we were focusing on the sales tax of what I thought, it would be short. So in the last week, we have been made aware that there's an actually different funding line item down there called the supplemental lottery per pupil, where the big blue arrow's pointing to. We were informed this week that revenue item 2 is, kind of dependent upon lottery sales. Sales tax is retail goods and wholesale goods, but the lottery sales, ordinarily they would be fairly steady and increasing year over year, but we were made aware that the proceeds for April to the state are down about 26%, and they're down about 13% for May. So the VDOE is just telling us that sometime in June, we have about 137,000 left to come in. You might not get all that. And unfortunately, I can't tell you how much. All I can say is they tell us, don't look to be receiving all of that. So that's the one update, that the supplemental lottery revenue was another revenue stream that's kind of a little bit in jeopardy. But on the next slide, I would like to show you a kind of a different graph that I did for sales tax without all the bars and stuff. And what I did want to show you is that I wanted to show you where the blue line goes of where I thought the sales tax was going to do. And the red line is what it actually did. So right there at March, March, it came in at about 121,000. That was about 40,000 less than the month before in February. Now, at the height of the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought that the sales tax would really, fall off very quickly. Surprisingly, I thought about 105,000 would come in April, but it turned in at about 117. And in May, I was even more surprised. I thought it would be dropping down to about 89, and it's actually 135. So, I guess probably a good conclusion you can draw from this is, well, whatever we might be short on the lottery proceeds, it might be made up for in higher than anticipated sales tax collection. I think they will offset, but June is the month, and unfortunately it's the last month of the year. There's nothing you can do to change your spending. So we're going to have to wait to the last minute to see how these things play out. But on the overall 17-point-something million budget, these two items, they're important, but they're not deal breakers. It's not going to put the division into a tailspin or anything like that. The next slide, actually, this slide here, it's actually updated up through May 15th. So it's like, half of the May, all of April and half of May's revenues have actually been recorded. So if you look down there to the blue shaded area, we were at about at the end of April, we were at 137,000 short, right? And right now we only have 66,000 left to go to be completely up to the 255 that was budgeted. So if the state comes in June and says, well, you're not going to get all 66,000, you might get half. I think the sales tax revenue higher than I had anticipated will probably make up for this. So I really don't see that this much as a big problem. Now on the next slide, this is updated because as Dr. Hall Leonard had mentioned, that thing that you saw earlier, well, that was something 2 weeks ago, and then we keep making purchases. So this all I did here was fill in some more numbers that when they actually became known. So no, this is the original. The next slide has more updated numbers. There we go. I wanted to see where we went from to the next slide 6. So in the past 2 weeks, a lot of the purchase orders have been issued. The COVID pay, assistant pay was paid. if you recall, I had anticipated 220,000 and actually came in at only 203, so that's good. And then we've written a couple more purchase orders down there for, you know, you actually approved some of them tonight. So what I'm doing is I'm actually filling in, you know, much more detail as it becomes known, as we actually issue purchase orders. So to Dr. Hull-Leonard's point, see, when we passed the budget for 2020 for this fiscal year, you had X amount of revenues and X amount of expenses, and you have a zero, a no surplus, no deficit. But when they gave us the $335,000 rollover, basically what that meant was they gave us the approval to spend $335,000 of our savings balance that was in their trust. And they had that balance waiting for us to spend or keep. Well, we asked for it. So that means we have to spend below zero that amount that they gave us. So, because it's like it's not an income statement item, it's a balance sheet item. So you have to spend down your savings balance, so to speak. That's the best way I can say. It's kind of like a savings balance. And I can tell you that in the next fiscal year, it's going to do the exact same thing. We have to have I think a $280-something thousand deficit, because that's the rollover they're granting us for fiscal year 2021. So I know it sounds counterintuitive to actually spend into a deficit. On budget, that's illegal, but in actuality, sometimes you have to do that. For example, our cafeteria fund this year has to spend into a deficit because the savings or the cash balance is too high according to the VDOE. So we have to spend it down to about a 3-month average. They don't like school divisions sitting on money. So they say you have to get it down to about a 3-month. 3 months of your operating, that's all they want you to have at June 30th. So that's why last year we were about $180,000. We had to spend into a deficit in order to get down to a 3-month average. So that's why we have to hit that negative 335 mark this year. And if we don't, they're not going to grant it to us in the next year. Okay, so the next slide is just an update on the CARES Act funding. The great big federal program, everybody knows about this. Everybody gets a piece of it. Our original award in April was about 610, and they made some adjustments. So our final number that is actually sitting in Omega is 626, 670. And then, so what has to happen now, Superintendent and I are going to have a lot of meetings and plannings over this, because this funding is to cover a bunch of specific things that they outlined. So like on the next slide, I created kind of a format, a shell to start accounting for it. But at the heading, the top of this thing tells you the kind of things that you're able to spend it on. And this funding is actually gives the school division a little bit of leeway on what you can and should be spending it on. What they're saying is in essence, they want you to spend it on things or people or whatever to enable us to teach during a pandemic. So if this thing continues on into the school year, we can't come to them and say, we don't know, we can't do distance learning because we didn't have enough money. This is what this is here to pay for. And that's why a lot of the dollars in the 6th column over where that blue shaded thing is, by the way, these dollars to these particular things, that's just my first guess. We're gonna move those things side to side, 17 times before we actually start issuing purchase orders. But the last column there, where the grants or the funding says in the second, other activities necessary to maintain continuity of service and to employ existing staff. See, that's federal speak for don't put your people out on unemployment. Just keep them on your payroll. And this thing gives you quite a bit of leeway to do stuff. But it really wants you to get that technology in place so students have a fighting chance of distance learning during a pandemic. So that's a very brief update. I don't think I've ever given you guys anything less than 8 slides. So if there are any questions?
Dr. Hall Leonard, did that help answer your question in regards to that spin down?
I appreciate Mr. Ryder for the overview. And as far as answering my question, I believe he has probably, I don't want to say he didn't answer my question. I don't want to say he did. However, I'm still concerned. I'm a little concerned, and it may be, I do understand clearly in reference to the CARES Act funding. I do. But in reference to the spending to down to the deficit, I am a little concerned. I don't know if maybe it may be helpful to me. And I've been going back to look at our previous budget, trying to really compare the previous budget with the with what's going on now and where we were at the beginning of the school year versus where we are now. Some of the format has changed. We've turned over staff in our finance department. And so the format, the spreadsheets, the way the information is presented is a little bit different. So I'm trying to digest all of that. And so I also would have been doing some research to try to educate myself because I'm not an accountant. Finance is not my background. In reference to budget deficit versus debt, I just want to make sure that the school board does not finish the fiscal year with any type of variance or having overspent the budget. I'll just leave it at that. But I appreciate you, Mr. Ryder.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments in regards to the finance report? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ryder, for that presentation and update.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Sterling, if you would like to move on, it looks like up next is transportation. Dr. Sterling, you may want to unmute.
Mr. Ryder will, can you
Yeah.
hear me? Oh, excellent.
can.
Sorry about that. Mr. Ryder will continue with the transportation report.
Okay, thank you. So transportation comes under my department as well. And with the recent departure of the transportation director for retirement, you know, I wanted to start out this slide, that first statement that we're taking the time to question everything before we proceed forward with anything, because that's what I do. That's how I roll, so to speak. I get my arms around every single thing that is in the department. How many buses, you know, really simple stuff. How many buses do we have? How many drivers? What are their routes? What do they do? And unfortunately, you know, all the buses are sitting in a yard and all the bus drivers are sitting at home. So, except for 2 of them delivering meals. So, one of the things also that, you know, I'll remind the board is that, and you probably don't know this behind the scenes stuff on a day-to-day basis, but this past year has been quite challenging insofar as driver call-offs are concerned, driver absenteeism, and finding the people to actually get the kids to even their normal routes and their extracurricular activities. I mean, there's sometimes I think, you know, even superintendent was called by a principal, like the bus hasn't showed up, you know, and we have to find people and then they pick them up very late. So we've had some, you know, had quite a few driver problems, and this isn't new. You know, almost every school division transportation person will tell you the same thing. It's a universal problem. And then the third thing I wanted to say was, you know, we've never failed to provide any kind of transportation for lack of operable equipment. We have the buses. It's the people and the timing and the scheduling. So if you will just bear with me a little bit, because I just want you to know that I'm providing information because I usually always ask, you know, what I do ask big picture questions. What are we doing and why are we doing it? So the first question I ask myself is, like I think I said in Dr. Sterling, a lot of decisions, when I'm faced with a big decision, the first thing I ask is, what's the law? What are we legally required to do? I find that a lot in nutrition, because program after program comes down from the state and I'm like, well, do we have to do this? No, it's voluntary. Okay, so then we decide whether we want to spend a lot of time on it. So moving along to the next slide, I actually asked the question, what does the law dictate the division is obligated to provide in transportation? Because I actually quite couldn't find it. And finally, on code section of 178, the guy from VDOE helped me. He basically laid it out that students under 10 years old, I don't know if everybody knows this, but because it was kind of new to me, I wasn't quite exactly sure on this. But students under the age of 10, which I guess would be elementary kids, if you draw a 1 mile ring around their home school, the school division doesn't need to provide transportation, but outside the ring, they do. Students over the age of 10, the ring expands to 1.5 miles. So I thought, well, what does this look like? And I don't know if anybody has ever seen anything like this before for our division. So I thought I would share it with you. So on the very next graph, I'll show you that each little red dot there is a address of a elementary child or children, because each dot, you could have 2 or 3 kids at elementary school. So each dot is an SP Morton kid. And I drew these lines, it's hard to see. On the left picture, these lines are 1 mile in each direction from SP Morton. So when you draw back on the right side, when you draw a circle around that, all the dots inside the circle, according to the state of Virginia, they're inside the walkable ring. They could walk to school. And the kids outside, way up there, all those kids, the division is required to provide transportation. Now, I caution you, I'm not making a statement. I'm just trying to show you graphically what does the law prescribe for us, without political or city council input. I just want to show you the data. On the next slide, interestingly enough, this is the high school. And so I had to kind of shrink the graph a little in order to get that 1.5 mile ring, and the 1.5 mile ring even extends off the map. So it's quite a different story here. As the red arrow points, there's a whole bunch of high school kids outside that 1.5 mile ring. So we have to transport, by law, we're required to transport all those kids. So as you look at all the dots inside the ring, probably about 40% of the kids are inside the ring, and I guess about 60% are outside the ring. And JP King was really kind of surprising to me in that almost all the kids are inside the 1.5 mile ring. You can almost visually count. There's about 16 kids outside the ring that you have to provide transportation for, and the rest of them are inside the ring. Which is interesting. And unfortunately, so the next slide, is our list of vehicles, kind of where they're at. That top one and those other 3 in yellow are all approved by the board already, and I'm in the process of getting them prepared for auction and donation. Bus 8 is going to the Boys and Girls Club. And so that's our inventory of buses. And so what happens is, this is the foundation of a study that we're doing, of our analysis. These are my first overall arching questions and analysis, because Melissa Vargas is kind of new to transportation, and we're bringing in her assistant that's, we have to bring them up to speed on where are we at. The real fun part is the matching of the routes to the drivers, and that's all going to be happening. I'm very glad that this happened, quite frankly, while the buses aren't running very well, so we can very in detail look at the routes and how they're constructed. So on the last slide, our June presentation is going to contain a little more analysis and some options that we want to take into account in July and August, because both the nutrition and the transportation and the buildings and maintenance, all three of those things are going to be significantly impacted by how and when we open the schools. You know, some of the CDC guidelines are a kid in every other seat on a bus. Well, what is, you know, so if we're going to drive Route 2, well, last year we jammed all the kids in the bus. Well, if we can only take a third of the kids, we got to either start earlier, you know, start picking them up at 6 a.m. or something. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to have to go into the planning, the reopening planning, and that's what Dr. Sterling and everyone is going to meet, I think June 3rd, I think it is, to start this process. So this is the foundation of where we're heading. Are there any questions on that?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ryder in regards to the presentation on transportation?
Yes, Mr. Ryder, this is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. Thank you for the presentation. My question is in reference to your rationale for bringing us, let me go back to, let me scroll. I think the chart that said, the chart with the distance of the children in the neighborhoods who may, so that the division may not need to provide transportation. Okay. I'm looking at the one that says each dot is in JP King student, let's say over age 10, the free form lines, hand drawn. You see where I am, Mr. Ryder?
Right, right.
Are you insinuating, and I'm asking, are you insinuating that the students should be walking and we maybe should not provide transportation? Help me with that.
That's the path that that was the dangerous path I was taking in presenting these graphs. I actually just wanted to graphically for myself kind of see what are we legally required to do, because Dr. Hall Leonard, I just didn't want anybody to say to me, well, this is what we've always done. And so I wanted to, if we were ever at a point that we wanted to rethink our transportation with different options, well, what can we got to start somewhere. Because the next thing is going to be all the routes that I'm going to draw on these things and see how they intersect with the lines. No, it's not a statement that, you know, that's just the law, that inside the ring, you're not legally required to provide transportation. But then outside, you know, conversely, outside the ring, you are. So if we weren't, then that would be a problem. So we're more than compliant with the law in providing transportation. But as we deal with driver shortages, we have to really, driver shortages accompanied with how we're going to open the schools. You know, we have to really know as much information as possible to get a workable plan together. But no, I'm not insinuating that anyone inside the ring, they should be walking. No.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ryder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ryder? All right. Thank you very much again, Mr. Ryder and Dr. Sterling. I think next we have up is extra duty supplement lists.
Yes, we had a board member ask about the extra duty supplement list, and I wanted to make certain that I provided it with the board with a recommendation. We restore the supplement list every single year, and at this time, I'm recommending the change for May 20th, 2020. We restore supplements over 75%. This is going to get us even closer to our 90%, 95% mark. And as you can see, some of the supplements have no change, but the majority of the supplements have been changed, and it will need board approval.
So let me make sure that we're on the same page. What you're requesting is board approval to increase those supplements that you have listed that are less than what they were in 16-17 back to what they were in 16-17?
No, all of them didn't go back, but to approve the increase towards restoration. That's what we're asking for. Some of them have been fully restored, but because of funding, some of them have received an additional funding, but not back to the.
So the
But
ones
just-
that were not fully restored, you're trying to get those back to fully restored.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
But you, like for example, you have baseball varsity has been restored back to the 2090, but then you have varsity basketball that has been restored to 4,500, but in 16-17 it was 4,009. So we're still in progress of getting them back to full restoration.
So are you seeking approval for something tonight, or are you just offering this for informational purposes?
I'm seeking approval for the additional increases to restore the supplemental stipends. That's it, to restore the supplemental stipends to the 16-17 school year.
Okay.
Or just to increase the supplemental stipends as presented.
You're requesting the comments unread to the right-hand side.
To the right-hand side, yes, will be the new, yes.
That last column is what she's requesting approval for.
Yes, thank you.
I will entertain a motion in regards to Dr. Sterling's recommendation.
This is Rebecca Jester. I make a motion to approve the superintendent's recommended changes to the 2020-21 extra duty supplement list as it was presented.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Jester. Do we have a second?
Williams, Ward 4, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays have the same opportunity.
Rebecca Jester, Ward 1, aye.
Hall Leonard, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jessica Banks, Ward 6, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion does carry. All right, anything else, Dr. Sterling?
No, thank you each and every one of you. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sterling. Moving along now to number 5, unfinished business. We do not have any. Under number 6, we do not have any new business. Next up would be number 7, business by school board members. And first in that section is special recognition. We've got some staff members to recognize tonight, and we're going to start with the 2020 School and Division Teacher of the Year. It was announced back earlier, bringing that up on mine, earlier this year, our individual teachers of the year, beginning with SP Morton Elementary School. And the teacher of the year at SP Morton Elementary was Miss Mabry. Miss Mabry has been with the division since 1995. She's currently teaching 2nd grade, and she's been doing that for 22 years. She is also the grade level chair for 2nd grade, and this is actually her 2nd time being named SP Morton's Teacher of the Year. She was Teacher of the Year for us 4 years ago. So big congratulations to Miss Mabry for being selected by her peers as SP Morton Elementary's Teacher of the Year. Next up would be Joseph P. King Jr. Middle School, and their Teacher of the Year is Miss Nikki Walton. Miss Walton is the computer skills and avid teacher at J.P. King. She has worked with Franklin City Public Schools for 5 years, and she's been a teacher for over 19 years. She supports JPK's intramural sports program as well, and she is actively involved in JPK's Parents as Partners program. So those that have gone out and been a part of that Parents as Partners program will probably recall seeing her there. So we congratulate her as well on being selected by her team at JPK. Next up is Franklin High School, and Franklin High School's Teacher of the Year this year is Mr. Brandon Yanna. Mr. Yanna started working as a substitute teacher with us back in 2010, and he was hired as FHS's physics teacher back in 2016. He also was our coach for our robotics team, our award-winning robotics team, as well as our Scholastic Bowl coach. And in the spring of 2019, his team qualified for the World Championship in Detroit, Michigan.
That's great.
And also this past summer, he traveled to Abaco Island in the Bahamas. He was our teacher liaison with our Jason's Learning Argonaut program. And they did some scientific research on sea turtles, tagging sea turtles and their swim patterns. So big congratulations as well to Mr. Yanna on being selected by his peers at Franklin High School. So that is quite a great group there to be a part of. And out of those three, we have Franklin City Public Schools 2020 Division Teacher of the Year. And it is my privilege to announce that Teacher of the Year for Franklin City Public Schools this year is none other than, do we have a slide, Ms. Moore? Do I need a drum roll? That Teacher of the Year is Mr. Brandon Yanna from Franklin High School. So congratulations, Mr. Yanna. That is well deserved. All three nominees were excellent representations of the division and of their schools. And Mr. Yanna is in great company with those three, and we want to salute him and congratulate him and say thank you to all three of you for everything that you do for your students and for the division. Anyone else have anything they'd like to comment on that?
Now this is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. Just want to say congratulations to all the teachers of the year and a special congratulations to you, Mr. Yanna.
Thank you, Dr. Hall Leonard. Moving up next is the bittersweet part of the recognitions, and this is our 2020 division retirees. It's so sad to always see our staff go, but it is also wonderful when we get to see them transition into that next phase of their life and into retirement, because we always know that it is so well deserved and well earned. So to each of our retirees for the year, know that we value you. We appreciate all you have contributed to the division over the years, and we wish you well in the next phase of your life. So those teachers that will be moving on, as I said, into that next phase of their lives, we have Sandy Atkinson, and this is actually Ms. Atkinson's second time retiring from us. So Ms. Atkinson, for those of us that are old like me, we will remember that Ms. Atkinson was the marketing teacher for many years at Franklin High School. And she is actually retiring again after 34 years of service to the division as our testing coordinator. So we wish her well. Next up is Mr. Gamble, Larry Gamble. He was serving as our science teacher and our athletic director. He was at Joseph P. King Jr. Middle School. So we wish Mr. Gamble well and hope that he enjoys his retirement as well. Next up is Miss Louise Gastonguay. She has been a teacher assistant with us for 12 years at the high school. She has been a valuable member of that team, and we wish her well as she transitions into retirement as well. Gail Hobbs also is retiring from Franklin High School as a teacher assistant with 10 years of service. We wish her well and hope that she enjoys retirement as well. Next up is one of those longtime members of our team, Ms. Teresa Rawlings. She is retiring as Franklin High School's exceptional education teacher with 30 years of service to the division. We value everything that you have contributed, Ms. Rawlings, and we wish you well. Next up, I'm not going to do these two separate because I'm going to do them together because they come as a pair. Miss Mona Sumlin and Mr. Dennis Sumlin. Miss Sumlin has been with the division for 39 years. A couple of us remember her as our own teachers, which tells our age. Miss Sumlin has been the health and PE teacher and the driver's education instructor at Franklin High School. And Mr. Sumlin has been the exceptional education teacher at Joseph P. King Jr. Middle School. They also both have been very active in sports within the division. You may recall we just honored Miss Sumlin as she was recognized by VHSL here recently as well. So to them, enjoy your retirement together. I hope you don't get tired of spending so much time with each other, and enjoy every single moment of it. You have both earned this and you both deserve it. Next up is Orline Turner. She was also exceptional education teacher at Franklin High School, and she is transitioning on after 13 years of service to the Franklin community. And we appreciate all that she has done for her students and that she has contributed to the division as well. And this one is our biggest one, our longest tenured employee, Juanita Vick, with 40 years of service to the division. Miss Vick, and now I'm going to pick on my husband. Miss Vick was my husband's bus driver when he was in school. So she has definitely been here for a while. She moved up through the division from driving a bus and was most recently our supervision of transportation and nutrition at central office. All of these are going to be greatly missed by the division. We wish each and every one of you well and hope that you have many, many years of happiness in retirement. So thank you, thank you, thank you to each and every one of you. Does anyone have anything to contribute or add to our discussion and our well wishes sent to our retirees?
Vice Chairman Hall Leonard, Ward 3, want to say happy retirement. Please enjoy your retirement, and maybe you'll come back and see us in another capacity. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right. Next up, I don't know if anyone has been downtown within the last 24 to 48 hours, but we were approached about a month ago, not quite a month ago, by a member of our business community, Miss Christine Hill with Coldwell Banker, and she felt drawn to need to honor the graduating class of Franklin High School. She was very heart-stricken by what they were missing out on with no graduation. They missed out on prom. There was so many of those milestones of their senior year that they were missing out on. And she felt compelled that she needed to do something. So she actually came up with this idea and approached City Manager Jarrett to see if there was a way that she could bring her idea to fruition. And Miss Jarrett put her in touch with myself. And that got the ball rolling. We reached out, we pulled in Mr. Phelps. We looked at what could be done, and this was the idea that she had. So what Christine Hill and Caldwell Banker together have done is they have purchased and had installed downtown banners for each graduating senior. So each graduating senior will have a banner with their picture on it, saluting the class of 2020. They will all be up by end of day tomorrow. Right now, the vast majority of them are up, but they will have them all up by end of day tomorrow. And they are running from one end of Main Street down to the other. They are absolutely beautiful. There are a few seniors that unfortunately did not have senior pictures taken, but their names will still be included on a banner. So every graduating senior that represents Franklin City Public Schools is included in this. And they will remain up through the 4th of July holiday is what I am told. And they are also looking at possibly the downtown businesses finding a way to salute the seniors as well. So we actually have a strong business community and stakeholders that are behind these seniors and supporting them. And we do hope that the seniors appreciate this, and give a huge shout out to Christine Hill and to Caldwell Banker as well for this.
Yeah.
And we hope that this does bring just a little bit of sunshine to these seniors under the conditions that they are graduating in. So thank you to Christine Hill. Thank you to Caldwell Banker. And also thank you to the Public Works Department, who are the ones that actually went out and installed these. And thank you to the city of Franklin for allowing this to happen. Any questions or comments in regards to that? Any business by school board members?
This is Hall Leonard, Ward 3. In reference to the Governor's School of the Arts, we received communication for the board from Dr. Warren in reference to the meeting scheduled for Wednesday, May the 27th. However, the board members received a request to have the meeting moved to either Thursday, May 28th or Friday, May 29th, so that we would be able to ensure that there is a quorum. So I will be able to report out from the last Governor's School Board meeting for the year after Friday, May the 29th. And we also received the same communication in reference to the CSEP board. So the Governor's School of the Arts will meet first, and following there will be a CSEP board meeting as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hall Leonard, for bringing us up to date on that. Anything else by school board members? The only item that I have, the Appomattox Regional Governor's School Board did meet last Thursday virtually by Google Meet. The budget for the upcoming year was passed. I had shared back earlier this year that there is going to be an increase to tuition. They also are adjusting their salary scales as well to bring them more in alignment with Chesterfield County. They have no plans as of yet for graduation. Last week and the week prior, they had pickup times for students to come and pick up all of their items. So students would register for a time slot. They came in and picked up their items. The staff had actually gone through and pulled everything out of their lockers and boxed them up. Any items left around the school, they went through and boxed them up as well. So majority of the students have picked up their items. There is no plan for a virtual graduation right now. That is something that the director did not feel fully honored the graduates. So that is not a path he wanted to go down. He did not feel at this time that the actual walking graduation would work. So they're looking at something maybe later. But he did say that he would be reaching out to each division to see what their plans were for graduation. So Dr. Sterling, he may be reaching out to you to see what our plans are. So just put that on your radar just in case he does reach out to you.
Yes, ma'am.
But that is all that we had at that board meeting. We do have an executive board meeting scheduled in June for ARGS. I believe that was on June the 4th. I am one of the 4 board members that is on that executive team, so I will be attending that meeting as well. So anything that we have to update, I will update everyone at the next meeting. Does anyone else have anything to share? Or anything that they would like to add before we get to the most important portion of the meeting?
This is Vice Chairman Hall Leonard, Ward 3. I just want to say that we have some amazing students in Franklin City Public Schools, and we are excited, and just for all of our students, especially the class of 2020, as they're going out into the world, and this is not what they would have imagined. But as we see them, we're not seeing them as often in the community, or you may know their parents. Let's congratulate them as we're doing. But let's really offer words of prayer for their families that are going through during this time. And also, not only do we have amazing students in Franklin City Public Schools, but we also have some amazing graduates of Franklin City Public Schools. And I know that I believe it's on Franklin High School's website, Mr. Phelps does have a spotlight for the alumni. And I'm sure that because of so many other things that have gone on, he may not have kind of kept that going. But even moving into next school year, that we would really highlight the alumni of Franklin City Public Schools.
Absolutely. And you are absolutely correct, Dr. Hollander. We have some great graduates this year, some outstanding young men and women that unfortunately are leaving our halls and transitioning on. But I did want to remind the public as well, if they are going back and viewing this, that the virtual graduations for each one of our schools, for our 5th, our 8th, and our 12th grade seniors, they will be airing starting on June the 3rd, that Wednesday. SP Morton's on the 3rd, JPK's on the 4th, and then Franklin High School's recorded virtual graduation and their walk will be airing on the 5th. So anyone that would like to be able to take a look at that once that goes out, those are the dates that those will air for the first time. So just letting everyone know that's out there. Anything else? Well, that moves us to everyone's favorite portion of the meeting, item number 8.1, which is adjourning the meeting. Do we have a motion in regards to item 8.1?
Ward 4, Marshall Williams, move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Ward
Hall Leonard.
5 seconds.
We have several seconds. Any discussion on that? If not, then moving by ward, all those in favor, including Mr. Ryder's puppy, signify by saying aye, and nays, of course, have the same opportunity.
Aye.
Hall Leonard, aye.
Marshall Williams, aye.
Andrea Shelton, I.
Jessica Banks, aye.
And Amy Phillips, aye. Thank you, everyone, again for a great Zoom meeting. I do look forward to the day that we can all be back in the same room together. Thank you. Continue to stay safe and healthy, and we will be back together again soon. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Good evening to all.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.